Let's call the meeting to order. It's officially, it looks like 2:59.
Sure.
And can we do a roll call real quick?
Yes, Craig Borba. Harry Courtright reports that he will be late, hopefully. He's not here now. David Kelly.
Yep.
Ed McBride.
Yes.
Kathy Warmick, and she reported she will be late.
Okay.
So today's November 21st. Did we say that? 2019. For the record, we are recording on an audio recorder, and the city clerk's office will post that for us. So speak up. So
I assume we can take out of order and go ahead. Do we come back to the minutes when everyone is here, or should we go ahead and do?
We could do that. I'll tell you, the agenda was posted on or before November 14th.
Okay. And you have some corrections to the minutes already?
Yes,
so
we recorded the wrong room, and we added the verb is.
All right, so can we have a motion to accept the minutes with corrections?
I'll move.
Second?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so minutes are done. So as I mentioned, we're going to rearrange a little bit and turn this over to our treasurer to do the discussion, or start the discussion on the trust funds, that you can be here to help contribute to that. And I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Kelly.
Okay. So I think what I'd like to start off with is what was in the packet that had this memo that memorialized a meeting that me, myself, and David Lacey, who's here, had in the end of October. And the purpose of that meeting was to discuss the library fund, and whether or not, one of the topics was whether or not we could actually move it. So as you can tell in the memo, I started off by talking about some things that Mr. Lacey related to us about the city of Palm Springs managing about $200 million in cash and investments, of which the library endowment is pooled into. And of that, according to the firm's website, the city is considering hiring public trust advisors to manage the city's portfolio. And I said a couple of facts that I found on the web about that. And as with any manager, I noted here that it's a negotiated fee-based relationship with set yield goals, conservative management, and ability to maximize liquidity. Then in the second paragraph, I noted that the city earned $1.1 million in interest income for a return of 1.8% for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2019. And that the city credited the library endowment for $36,694.73 in interest income for the same period. And prior to that, in the last couple of months, I guess, or actually since I've been on this board in the beginning of this year, we'd always looked at a number that showed $8,500 in interest, and I remember everybody was kind of like wondering, well, is that the real number or what? And having that budgeted figure was a different thing than actually having the actual interest figure. So, of course, that's why one of the things that we got from Mr. Lacey was what the actual figure was for the year, something that he really couldn't get to until he closed out the books for the year, went back and found out how much interest that the city got in total, and then allocated our percentage of it, and then awarded it and input it into the system. So, and then I note here, using current figures, this means the library will be able to spend the difference between the total interest earned, the $36,000 that I mentioned, and the budget figure, $8,500, or from what I calculated was $28,194.73. So, and then with regards to moving the library endowment from the city to a private management firm, Mr. Lacey suggested that the library review the legal documents that create the endowment for guidance, and he asserted that the endowment is not at risk for being spent inadvertently by the city. So that was really, and then at the ending, I said, besides looking into the legal documents forming the library endowment, the writer and Jeannie Case will review the library's financial reports to credit excess interest income to our cash account and the future library projects line on the expenditure status report. And then we need to discuss the future use of library endowment funds, given the Library Foundation's $90,000 note payable next July, and unanticipated budgetary needs of the library and the proposed expansion, renovation, or relocation of the library. So before we go into any discussion of those items, and I guess because of the fact that Jeannie was so kind as to go through her files and pull out a lot of the legal documents that I don't know if you got time to read them, or I mean, we don't have legal counsel here to really discuss them, but it would be useful to discuss them. But I think in the interest of time, probably the best thing to do is to actually first ask Mr. Lacey if my memo is a good representation of our discussion, if there's things you'd like to fill in, and then open it up to questions from the rest of the board.
So David Lacey, Assistant Finance Director for the city. I think the memo captures our conversation. We really spent some time talking about how the city invests public funds. So at this point, we have a pooled account, as was discussed. We have had kind of a policy of what we've done. We have invested funds directly to the city through the treasurer before. We're talking about switching the process of having a third-party investment advisory, it's called non-discretionary advisory services, help provide that, and that would really change the investment portfolio from just being a hold till maturity approach, which is a very passive approach, to a more actively managed approach. So that's one of the discussions that we're having. We're still negotiating through that, working on some revisions to the city's investment policy that should be going to council in December. To move that process along at this point. But previous city I worked for, City of Salem, Oregon, we used a third-party provider that helped because they did have a lot of the expertise that on-site staff did not have to be able to capture some of the opportunities out there. Really, the focus with the city is kind of threefold. It's a policy that we call, and it's in state statute as well. Safety, liquidity, and yield is our priority. So priority for public funds is safety first and foremost. Liquidity, meaning that if we need cash available, to have that available within certain time frames. And so our investment policy can have investments up to 5 years, but we try and keep a weighted average maturity of around 3 years. And then yield being the last of those priorities, but trying to capture what we can from a market, based on a market return.
Mr. Lacey, I'm familiar with the Salem Public Library.
Oh, great.
Do they have a foundation? I can't remember.
They had a Friends of the Library there as well, so yeah.
Have you ever worked with the city that had a library foundation?
I don't believe, I'm trying to remember if they had a specific one there. I know if they did, I wasn't one of the ones I directly worked with when I was up there.
I guess my questions, and it may be something you have to think about or go back and discuss. Sure. As you know, we've gotten a green light to move to the next steps of doing something on this site for a facility, which will lead to a capital campaign with the Library Foundation. And I remember talking to Dr. Reddy, it must have been when we were working on the strategic plan. So two things, establishing what I called, in my experience, a compact between the Library Foundation and the city on if they raise money, how they give it to the city and how will that work, because we just can't write a check or receive a check from the Library Foundation, which behind you is the president of the foundation and the treasurer of the foundation. So I think that's something we need to work on. I have a question, and Jeannie said I may not get this, but I would love to see the treasurer of the trustees sit on the finance committee of the foundation for that very reason, because as we all anticipate, some of this money at some point we want to give to the library to build a new building, right? So there's those kinds of issues. This report was amazing. Thank you, because it dispelled some. I had some. I was just telling Jeannie, I thought the trust fund had been around forever, but it hasn't, right? So I think that for us, is if we have money we want to give to the foundation, how will that work? And so I guess it's appropriate now that the city is looking at, this process, and I assume we need to start a process with the city to discuss how we would manage that, correct?
Correct.
Because we hope to raise millions of dollars from all over the city to give, the foundation does, to give to the city for the library. That's my first question. The second one, if the foundation, and they're still working and still building a finance or an investment, their policy, if if their investment strategies are better than what the city can give us, what's your advice? I mean, should we consider that as an option for some of the money, or how would that? What do you think if we? I guess what do you think? I mean.
Well, I think that would really be the option. So I think the legal pieces of it, the city attorney would still need to talk about.
Yeah.
The formation documents were provided in the packet here. So, that's more on their side than maybe finance at this point. But I think, it really depends. I know for public funds, there's certain requirements that we have to have, as I mentioned. So that process that we have, being risk averse to make sure we don't lose any funds. If that would be a risk tolerance type issue, or if there'd be other options available in that type of structure, that may be something to consider.
Sure.
I don't know what my advice necessarily would be for you at that point, but at this point we manage the fund as a trust and agency fund, so it's reported through our financial reports that we put through, so our annual audit, it's part of that process and things too. I think if funds were moved there, then that would mean that those funds would be subject to an annual audit, that would be contracted for that as well. So there are expense considerations, I think, as well as part of that aren't necessarily charged to the trust and agency fund at this point as part of the financial reporting pieces. But
Well, one of the nice things is that the Library Foundation has informed their investment strategy. Mm-hmm. So it's opportune that we could influence that, so that if we had a restricted fund for trust fund dollars to go to the foundation, one of those things could be that part of the portfolio adheres to the city's standards, I guess, or something like that, to protect that. I don't know. Of course, if we give money, we think the money's eventually going to be in walls and carpet and a building, right? So it's not that it's going to sit there for very long, but I guess my question is how would we do that? But I think we have. I'm not saying we have the answer, but I think we've got to start that discussion.
Yeah, I think there's a process conversation that still needs to happen as far as other pieces we look at.
Yeah.
That, so.
Any questions?
No questions. Thank you for being here.
Yeah. It's timely. We need to start thinking about this, because before you know it, I hope the next step is going to be started very soon on the capital campaign and how we want to manage this money. I said that we could leave the money where it's at and give, if we decide we wanted to commit funds to the city, well, of course, to build a building. That's the other way, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Only thing I can think of to the advantage that we have a consultant that's been working with us on the foundation side. His fundraiser, that's one of the things they do is fundraising. It's always been my understanding, and I could be totally wrong on this, is that the foundation at some point needs some initial gifts so that they can show the community that we have some money in the foundation to raise. And I know we talked to the Friends, I think, about making a contribution, and maybe the trust fund would be another contribution to kind of kick it off and get it started. So that's one of the things I think we need to probably work out with the consultants and say, is that ideal? And then make a proposal back to this body to see if it's something that's worthwhile. Yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah. So David, what do you think about that? I mean, the time will come where hopefully some money will have to go towards a building. Are you in favor of it staying where it's at, or would you consider serving to advise the Library Foundation to make sure that we're protected? Or
I think another treasurer who does that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that's why I put in my memo that we really need to discuss fully what has been historically the purpose of the endowment, what we think is a long-term horizon in terms of what we want to do with those funds. I would think that even the renovation or the approval of the renovation of this building or whatever City Council decides to do is going to take a number of years. And to actually liquidate the endowment before that probably is not a great idea. So I think there's a lot to discuss there.
Yeah, I think it's, and we're not the first ones who've ever done this, right? I mean, I think that we look at what other communities have done and how they've leveraged endowments to raise more money, and learn from that and maybe get some advice on that. So, but this was very helpful. don't have any more questions. City Librarian, do you have any questions? Good report.
No, I think I'm okay.
Thank you.
I assume you wanted to talk about the promissory note separately, right?
Yeah, the legal documents, I don't think we need to have Mr. Lacy listen to us go through.
Got you out of
It
here.
was interesting, right?
We will see you again, I'm
Go
sure.
back to managing our money.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, appreciate
We'll
it.
see you again, I'm sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time. So do you want to suspend this discussion until we have more trustees, or would you like to continue with your
I think we
report?
should, well, because, the treasurer's report is always at the beginning, so, it's a kind of a,
Okay.
might as well just go ahead with it.
All right, sir.
I guess they'll read about it in the minutes. I don't think there's anything that's, that I'm going to say that's going to require immediate attention by anybody. So,
Okay. Well,
but, if you want to go ahead and start with the regular.
well, I'm looking
order
at the
of
public,
meeting.
and I think that if they have anything to say, that they can say it after this report. So we'll just skip over and come back to public comments, because this is the foundation sitting here with us right now. So, okay, is that okay?
Totally fine.
So keep going. Yeah. The floor is yours.
Okay, so as I usually report, our cash balance, according to this statement that's been provided by Jeannie as of 11/7/2019, is $2,003,631.35. And Mr. Lacy's department has been doing a good job of bringing these numbers on it, so we appreciate that. Going back to some of these documents that Jeannie was so good to put in here, just to flip through them really quickly. One is a legal opinion that was done by Palm Springs City Attorney back in 2015, July 7th, talking about the library trust funds. And I guess I'm going to have to get used to calling it the trust fund, because I think all these legal documents seem to refer to it that way. I think the long and the short of this particular document is just establishing that the Library Board of Trustees is actually the manager of this trust fund, because that's one of the things we were concerned about. I'm not entirely certain about the other paragraphs in the sentence, other than in this letter, other than to say that there are laws in the state of California that govern endowments and funds like this. And I suppose at the time this was reviewed, and I don't know, because I'm looking at these documents, the subsequent ones, resolution number 11431 and resolution 11512, those seem to be historical documents. The last one, which refers to section 609 Board of Library Trustees, refers to the Palm Springs Municipal Code. Sections regarding the library, November 21st, 2019. Is that to say that that's today's date? But I don't know when. Jeannie, maybe you can clarify this for me. When the Palm Springs Municipal Code is this?
Oh,
As of?
that document. Let me see. Hold on, just a second. That was a compilation of all of the things in the city charter that referenced library. So I put the header at the top is, this is just a Word document that I created. This is not a city official document, but today's date, this is for our meeting, right. So that when you go back to look in your files and you say, what is this? I wanted to be sure to basically say, I think I got everything out of the city charter that was referencing libraries.
So one of the things I wanted to clarify was that, first of all, this wasn't the list that was actually provided by the attorney, this Palm Springs city attorney, when he was doing a legal review in 2015. Mm-hmm. And again, like as you just said, this list, although it may be as good as it gets, it may be missing something.
I'm pretty certain I found everything in the city charter regarding the library, but I could.
Yeah, it wasn't prepared by an attorney, but
correct. I could have missed something. It was prepared by your information specialist.
Yes.
And did you reference this back to that study or that review that was done by the city attorney back in? Because remember the reason we did that.
I did see, you can see the section 609, this is 609, the education code
Right.
is a state document, so he mentions 609 in his legal opinion, and then section 500 is separate, it's not related to us, but that's talking about me and my position. So 609 is all about library boards. So
Remember
I don't know if I
though,
answered that question.
and I'm sorry, I know I have it, but remember when there was questions about Mr. Weiss, remember there was brought to before us really as to the authority of the trustees, and we had the city attorney review that document, and we got a report back on that, right? At some point, I know he's no longer the city attorney, but didn't he come back to us with a report and kind of pretty much addressing those concerns?
I feel that was a different city attorney. So this is Doug Holland, and that was Eddie Kotkin.
That's right.
And the city charter, I think, clarifies the information so that it's not the way it used to be in the 70s. And I think let me see where it says.
There were members of the community who felt like the Board of Trustees should have the power to basically run the library.
Mm-hmm. But you
and
don't.
At one time, your position reported to the Board of Trustees, but when we became a city department, that all changed.
And before the 1975 resolution, the Board of Trustees paid the library director's salary.
Correct.
And so you are not acting in the capacity as it used to be. You don't pay the electric bill. You don't
Thank God.
buy all the things. You don't manage the human resources.
So the Board of Trustees was actually given a budget by the city, and then we spent it to pay.
No. They were not given any money by the city.
Oh,
We raised our own money.
Is that
You
right?
were your own entity.
Oh, okay.
And then in 1975, when that resolution happened, you came in under the city's purview, guidelines,
Charter.
budget. Yes, you became a department of the city. And I guess in the past, you were not a department of the city in that
we
way.
were operating the library.
You were operating it separately.
So it looks like this document, the
And
six.
there was a little bit of mushiness in who was in charge of what for several years, but it's not that way now. So Henry Weiss's day, it was different, and now it's not that way.
Well, his argument was always that it never officially changed, right? That it was still
This wasn't.
it was still under that, but it looks like this section
This
609 is one of those missing links that does say that basically the library is a city department, right?
And in Doug Holland's letter, his legal opinion, it says under the charter section 500 is that the library director is a department head of the city is appointed by the city manager. So in this email, this is where it says essentially that it's different than it used to be.
Gotcha.
But the one thing too, I guess, because going back to what you were just saying, Ed, about matching things up. This doesn't include, and it says obviously because it says Palm Springs Municipal Code at the top, it doesn't include the relevant California statutes that the city attorney at that time had actually referenced.
Which I'm familiar with. That says that as a public library, you must have an MLS in order for us to receive state dollar. Isn't that where that is?
It doesn't say that, I don't believe.
Or have they removed that? At one time, I remember in San Francisco that
What's an MLS?
Master Library Science. There was at one time part of that code that said that in order to receive state funds, you must have a Master's of Library Science degree librarian as your library director. And they fought to change that because they were becoming
I
rare,
understand.
right?
I have one, so we're good.
But I'm just saying, I know you are, but I'm saying that was all tied into how they gave out state money and all that, right?
Well, I think it was part of the the outsourcing.
Right.
And they wanted to make sure that they were hiring librarians and not just calling them librarians. But I don't, let me see, let me find the ed code right here.
Do we still have these restricted funds that were set up originally back in God knows when?
Well, it didn't seem like there was that much money in it. I hope that it was spent by now.
I would hope so too. Poor Mrs. Chamberlain, I hope her money is gone.
So the
After all this
education
Well,
code,
considering it was for Wellwood, I would think so.
Yeah. And those microfilm cabinets are probably long gone, aren't they?
probably not. No.
Just for the public reference, there's something
Fireproof.
that talks about microfilm cabinets and capital expenditures, all for monies totaling $45,000 that were supposed to be restricted funds for the purposes of the library.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
A lot of money back then, I guess.
Yeah.
Makes me feel hopeless when I graduated from high school.
I'm looking up the education code.
And it wasn't a task to you. I guess it was more of based on your recollection. Have we finally closed this loop between that? This feels like part of
According to our
that.
city, the loop is closed on who's in charge of the library.
We haven't heard from them lately.
Why would you think it's not closed?
Well, there was, I don't remember, there was this was previous, I think that was the group before all of us. I was on that group. There was a lot of people who came to these meetings feeling like that the Board of Trustees had gotten the short end and that we were supposed to be in charge. We were supposed to have Jeannie report to us. We were supposed to pay the bills. I mean, they were wanting to go back to that. Remember? I mean, I'm not dreaming that. And we it quietened down for some reason. I don't know. I can't remember now why. Maybe it was because the city attorney told them that that's not true. Yeah. Okay.
Having difficulty finding what
That's
I'm looking
okay.
for on my phone, but
I can go look it up if I have questions.
it basically
about
says that the California Education Code that says any municipality is required to have a public library or provide one. As an example, Indian Wells doesn't have a public library, but they pay Riverside County to be their official public library. And each library must have a 5-member board. And another example, in Riverside County Library System, the 5-member board is the Board of Supervisors. And I believe in Rancho Mirage, their 5-member board is their city council. So our city assigns a set of commissioners to serve as their board.
In some cities, the city council is the board, right?
Yeah, that's what I said about Rancho Mirage. I
Yeah.
think that's how they're set up.
Okay.
So, but the long and short of having these documents, I think, is really to give those of us who are new to the, this Board of Trustees at least an opportunity to kind of eyeball this and get an idea of what things are going on, and those of us who've been here a little longer are kind of a refresher.
Thank you.
But also to actually gather them in one spot so that when we get to the point where we need to actually have a conversation with an attorney about what we think we can or cannot do, at least we can say, okay, this is the body of work that we're working with right now, and you can start your legal analysis based on this. The reason I asked for the agreement and promissory note to come in here is because it is coming due soon, and this was something to my knowledge was actually drafted by the city. So we might have to get a city attorney involved with this again. I just thought we might want to have a discussion about this, and I think at some point the discussion is going to be looped into a broader discussion about what to do with the trust fund. Because I over the couple of months I've been here, I've heard all kinds of suggestions about the status of this promissory note and what's to be done with it. So I'm including that in here for the record. I thought the bylaws were important to be in here in the record because, as I think I mentioned in my memo, there was something in here about the trust and how funds were leaving it with the authority of the treasurer of the of this body. Section 3, I guess on page 6, the board shall administer any trust declared or created for the library received by gift, devise, or bequest and hold in trusts properly situated in California or elsewhere. And where not otherwise provided, dispose of the property for the benefit of the library. The board shall utilize a uniform procurement procedure for the use of library trust money related to awarding of contracts. That's pretty evident in there. I don't know. It says in section 3 in article 4, number 2, in the absence of the president, treasurer shall co-sign all contracts or agreements authorizing the use of funds held by the library trust fund and perform such duties that are generally associated with the office of the treasurer. Which is fine. That's all I wanted to report with this, I guess.
So, David, on the promissory note to the foundation, I mean, as the representative of the foundation, I think that we should anticipate that the foundation is going to ask for some sort of an extension based on where they are right now in establishing the finance committee. And they have spent some of this money, so if we asked them to, and they've paid back $10,000, right? $10,000 has been paid. So I don't think that they've got $90,000 to pay this, right? So I guess the question would be, with this being due in July, that the library foundation needs to be prepared to come before the board and ask for some sort of an extension or some sort of a plan. The annual report is due back in January, right? From the foundation? April. So in April, at a minimum, I would say the foundation would need to have either telling us how you're going to pay it back, asking for an extension, or maybe by then you'll have more information about the plans for the finance committee and how you're going to raise money. And so I think that this is the critical year to talk about this outstanding loan.
Yeah, and I also would think that the foundation to at least refresh my memory, because I'm working with kind of hearsay here, as to not so much how we arrived at approving it, but actually what was done with the $100,000 and what was the intention of it, and so we can match an extension if that's what's requested to kind of the original purpose.
Fair enough.
In that way. And I don't know if at some point, and I know you're at a deficit to really do this because you're still staffing a lot of the decision makers in the foundation. Whether what is your thoughts about what are the proper uses for the library trust vis-a-vis where you see the goals of the foundation?
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think that would be important to know. But then it depends on how who's in your group making those decisions, I guess. So that's a tough one.
Well, clearly, I wasn't here when this was established, but back in 2015, this group thought that they'd be much further along by 2020. That's 5 years. And I'm pretty sure they thought there would be somewhere, bulldozers turning ground and buildings coming up. I mean, but that didn't happen. So I think that the way I look at this, and both having my hat on as a trustee and as a member of the foundation, I don't think there's anyone to blame for being in this situation, but I think we have to take that in consideration that, the foundation was on hold during these years, not doing anything. But I think it's only fair to keep this documented so that the foundation comes back and explains what they've done with the money since they got it. Also saying, here's where we are in our process, and here's where we see. And by the way, you've got this in the plans that we just started working on, right? So here's where we think we'll be over the next few years, and to ask for some sort of an extension or something. But I think that's fair, David. That it kind of closes the loop on this as well. Mm-hmm. Not close it, because I think we're going to be dealing with the foundation and raising money for a long time. Right? And so do you guys want to say anything? I mean,
I do, but Kathy has a question.
Mainly, I think we should look at agendizing this for April. Ask the foundation to come back with a report on the uses of the money and any new proposals they have for extending the loan, but we should have a definite agenda date to deal with it. And my apologies for having to bring my dog, but I had no choice or I wouldn't be here.
Your dog, as we all know in the neighborhood, is so ferocious.
I should list it as a guest in the list of attendees.
I agree. So I think so the foundation, that's kind of marching orders that we need to start working on that report for April. And I just coming back and tying back to this agreement with what needs to be done.
Okay.
So go ahead.
Just technically, we need to see a copy of the loan and what it's for. And I'm just thinking out loud, whatever it's for, we're getting close to a place where we can probably do whatever it was intended to do.
Yeah.
We're kind of back on our feet.
I gave my copy to David Lacey.
Okay, I'll read it to you. This promissory note. No, it's very simple. It's only. It's
But
not.
it probably doesn't say the purpose.
No,
does it?
it does. It says the promissory note is made and given for the purpose of providing seed funds for the startup of the foundation and the initial solicitations, receipt, and administration of funds and property, and to disperse such funds, property, and income to or for the benefit of the City of Palm Springs Public Library System. So it really was to get organized.
Okay.
But very broadly.
Yeah.
The promissory note was for $100,000.
Correct.
Theoretically, we've spent $10,000 of that.
$16,000.
It sounds like it because you've paid back $10,000.
Oh, then we're only $6,000 down, right?
Well, wait a minute. You've paid $10,000, so the note is still due for $90,000.
Right.
Now, in the bank, which I just gave David the bank statements, I think that there's what?
84, 86 or something.
Yeah, you're right. So you've used some of it primarily for the fundraiser that was done, a year or two ago at Smoke Tree?
So it must not have raised any money.
I don't think we've had any gift. I don't think
We got a lot of work to do.
Raise some
The
money.
smoke tree.
Yeah.
but it cost us some
That's the
money
one thing
too.
you've done, but you also spent money on your website, you spent money on PR stuff.
Which goes to the purpose,
Yeah, your logo creation, your whole bunch of other paraphernalia.
It just like, I think that,
Legal.
yeah, the report just needs to be a little tighter this year with what you've used it for, and because it's up for renewal, I think the question will be either A, we get busy and raise the money to pay it back, right? Which I guess that's another option. Or you'll ask for an extension because of just kind of where the foundation is right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What are you showing them?
Well, the money can't all be in this bank because the balance is $27,894.
It's somewhere. There's two.
There's some
Yeah, you have some
investments.
investments.
Yeah.
And in September, we didn't spend any money, but we have income.
Wow.
$2.29.
that $2,
Don't put it all in one place.
$2 might come in handy one day.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, this, again, David, thank you for this thorough report, and Jeannie, I think it was,
That's great.
I know this has been in the works for a long time. I remember us asking for this for some time, so how will we keep this, I guess, updated so that we don't have this huge gap anymore? Is this just going to be our standing report where you'll give us updates on any changes to any of this, or what do you think?
As far as the Office of Cities Finances are concerned, I mean, that's always just part of the treasurer's report anyway.
Okay.
I think probably as we continue to discuss what is going on with renovation, whatever, rehabilitation of the library, those issues will come back up again. I think probably as trustees are concerned, I mean, the one thing that I know was being called upon for the trust fund was the use of funds for consultants, and I'm assuming that that's a done deal and that Measure J funds have already covered that. So I don't think that there's any particular calls on the fund that are coming up in the next couple of months other than the usual disbursement of interest income for the library's purposes. And if there is something else coming up that's anticipated by either the director or other board members here, probably needs to be put on the agenda.
So I made the request to Measure J, but I have not heard back, and they're meeting right now today too.
Good.
So I don't know if that's even on their agenda as far as, or if it needs to be on their agenda. You know, last time David Gray was saying, you don't have to ask us, but I have to ask someone. So my requests were submitted, and I don't know if the Measure J funds are going to pay for those consultants or not, but we made the request. I have a special question for you. When it comes to, when you see the report that shows the cash balance, and then we have the line item accounts where it says future library projects, trust fund books, profits or trust, all of those different categories, those numbers don't match. And so I was curious about about the cash and then these accounts, and Julie might know this too, but I was reading, or I believe it was in At Sunrise, where it says that they designated, maybe it's there or maybe it's in our minutes somewhere, but where they designated this account future library projects. Was that in At Sunrise? Do you know about this?
Yes, they did that in the Library Board of Trustees. That wasn't part of that.
Okay, so I think in the past they just used the cash balance and they would just pull it from whenever they needed it. But then for some reason they, instead of having all of these strange accounts, they put it all in one fund called Future Library Projects. And then when we were talking to the finance department, they were saying, well, why would you have this? And why wouldn't you just pull it from cash? And then I believe that it was because after talking to the finance director, she was saying if you don't budget it, you have to go to, if you're a department, you know, a city department, and you have to request funds, it would have to go to city council for a budget adjustment.
Makes sense.
And you all don't run that way. You all vote.
That's right.
You say we're going to set aside $150,000 for the Wellwood patio, and then you do, and that's how it's handled. And then when the project goes, it's run through the city's procurement process to keep everything on the up and up and transparent. But you wouldn't have to go to city council to say, can we please have a budget adjustment of our funds? And I think that those two issues are tied together, that there's this future library projects account that's budgeted every year for
we can pull money from.
for your full unallocated balance, and then you can transfer between those different
Well, the funny
accounts.
thing though is, and correct me if I'm wrong, in directing the question to us, I think it's really a kind of a city finance issue. And I think when we actually presented that to Mr.
David
Lacy,
Lacy.
that he kind of like shrugged. Because I think there's a certain amount of leverage that you have when you're inputting things, and I'm not entirely certain about this, but was it at the direction, I would assume this is what happened, at the direction of the Board of Trustees, there was a request to put in this line item, and either you or you requesting to the City Finance Department did that.
It was before my time.
Okay.
Probably 20 years ago.
Yeah, so I suspect that this is really just more of an accounting thing. I think the narrative that you just described about putting it in there so that we can have access to funds makes sense, but maybe that's something we might, in a subsequent meeting with the finance department, wanted to just double check on that, because, you know, in my term here, I haven't seen that issue being raised, and I'm not entirely certain that that's...
Well, he raised the question, so when you and I met with David Lacy, he said, why do you have this account? Why don't you just pull it from cash? And I had never thought that was an option. And then thinking about it and researching it, they designated this fund, and I'm playing detective here thinking, why is that done that way? And I think it's so that you have the opportunity to access your funds whenever you need it.
Well, I can imagine.
And not once a year during budgeting time.
I'm going to try to channel previous trustees here for a minute.
That's what we're doing.
It wasn't too long ago where if we sat here yesterday and this roof started leaking, the city didn't have the money to fix it. We would have had to pull from this money to fix it. So I bet you there was it was an emergency type rainy day fund, literally, that going through city council to get money could take months, and there could be water in the floor, right? So I would imagine that's why they did it this way.
Well, there was another reason too, actually, that I heard.
What was that?
That in order to ensure that the city didn't spend the money, that it was allocated somewhere.
So you're channeling somebody else too.
I think that there was a little bit of, maybe not a little bit of, but maybe a little bit of truth to that, because you wanted to be able to see it clearly where it is. The royal trustees wanted to be able to see all your money assigned into different accounts, and we normally don't see this or even understand what this.
But you keep referring to cash. Where do we ever see a cash account? I mean, what am I missing something
it's
here?
It's on a different sheet, and that's the one where we have to run a special report, which
and that's where I
is the one that's so confusing. It's the one that's super confusing.
I want something new about this report. Every time we have a meeting, it's just...
We stopped running it because it was so...
so this report, 2.194, is the cash report, right?
I don't see
1.94. What does it say?
I don't see 2.1. Oh, yes, yeah. But no, at the top left, 2.003, $2,003,630.
Total assets, correct. Yeah, notes receivable was finally correct. Interest, accounts receivable. Okay.
It does make sense to draw from cash. It does make sense to draw from cash, as long as it's not something that's going to be reabsorbed into the city's budget.
Yeah.
And I think that was the fear before, is that you wanted to see it assigned out where you could see it. But my point was, if we're getting the interest income and it's automatically going into our cash, which they assured us that all of the interest income we ever earned is in our cash fund, but I never knew the amounts to transfer it into this future library project account, which is why those don't match.
So that would mean that when we start the budget next time, we would take the current cash balance and put in that number if we wanted to track it, right?
I think so.
We just haven't been updating it year over year when we do the budget.
Because we've missed it for 3 years trying to figure out how much interest income we earned.
Makes sense.
And we didn't have the numbers.
Or, as we've said, you zero that out, and if we ever needed money, we would go into we would still have access to money. But you're saying,
Oh,
though,
you're saying zero out the account called
Right.
Future Library Projects, and you just leave it in
use
cash.
right.
Just leave it in your cash.
But are you still saying that if we needed that cash, would we have to go to city council for approval to draw down that cash?
That's how I was explained, how it was explained to me.
Okay.
That it would be called a budget adjustment.
Yeah, that's why I was saying that maybe in a future discussion with the city finance department, then we could revisit this issue. Because I don't see anything that really requires us at this point to move or to eliminate a line item. Just because we haven't quite figured out the history of it yet.
I thought it was good for us to have a discussion about it anyway, so that we could
To
at
be even
least
more confusing, you actually used to have more
Well,
accounts with
it
different
looks like-
names, and it got rolled into the future library to one account. You actually had broken out many different line
I remember
items.
some of those.
Yeah, so it was actually a lot more convoluted.
Well, we decided, 2 years ago, that the budget would strictly be those active projects for that year, remember? And that if at the end of the year, we would update that if there was still money, or if that project wasn't going to happen, we deleted that project or that line, and that money went back into the cash, remember? Because of that very reason, we had so many lines on here that it was just confusing.
And that's how we operate anyway. You didn't really have to say that or just declare that, because if, as an example, the LED sign project, let's say it had $6,000 left over, the project's complete. At the end of the year, that's exactly what we do. We evaluate the account. We say that project's complete. Please return the $6,000 back to the future library projects account and close that line item. So you don't have to see it every month, because you know it's done. And so that's how we operate anyway. We do that now. So we're saying the same thing.
Yeah.
Isn't Doug Holland's memo on this just positive of not having to go to city council for these funds? When you read the memo, the legal opinion of the then city attorney, it appeared to me that it resolves that issue.
Well, for the time being, until we actually go to the city and say, this is what we want to do with the money. And then they'll probably say, oh, well, we need to have an attorney review it, and then we'll come back to them. That's why I was asking to prepare all these documents, so that we could say, okay, when we're ready to make a move, let's show you all these documents. This is what we've got, and this is why we're proposing this. And let them opine at that time, because I can't, they're probably not going to rely on anything that's 5 years old.
So does it go to the city council for information or for approval?
Now, the finance director told me that if we made a change to what was budgeted, it would have to go to city council for approval. It doesn't really make sense to me as far as the trustees go.
It
So
almost looks like we need to go to the current city attorney and just get a read that Doug Holland's memo is still accurate. I would
Right.
actually, normally I would rely on a memo from a city attorney that's in the file and not think that it has to go back again, because that is an official opinion. But if we want to get a second read on it, that's a good thing to do.
But I guess my point is just that let's do a second read when we actually have a proposal. Right.
I actually would do it beforehand just to make sure I know what I'm doing.
And maybe this is a non-issue. Maybe we just continue status quo. We keep our account called Future Library Projects. We put every dollar that's not assigned to a project into that fund. I'll clarify the Croppicer Trust donation, because it was earmarked for specific purchases, that we kept that one out separately, even though we don't plan to spend it all now, because they specifically said we want our money spent in this manner for
It's restricted fund.
it's restricted. So I called those out separately, and we just roll that over every year, the money that we don't spend. So maybe we just continue on, but that was a proposal that David Lacey said. He says, why do you keep your money out in future library projects? Why don't you just keep it in cash? And I didn't know that that was even an option. But then the counter argument to that is historically, there was an instance when the city was paying the library's phone bill out of your trust funds without your permission, and that all had to be reversed because it was discovered that was happening. So
well, the other thing
we just
too
want to make
is
sure
that-
it's all here and all for you.
Because I would be happy to, as treasurer, start doing some research about, finding other alternatives than to keep the money in the city.
Right.
But one of the other things I'd like to discuss, even before we do that too, is to say, well, what is it that we're going to be using those funds for in the next 5 years? Which is one of the reasons why I asked all these documents to be got together, including the $90,000 promissory note, because now that we've gotten some more direction, I suppose, from the city about what we're going to be doing with the library, maybe we should start having that conversation about how we're going to use the trust funds for those city plans. Because the issue is, if all of a sudden we earmark $1 million of that $2 million to a project that has to do with expansion, creation of whatever the library is, then that makes the remaining $1 million less appealing to a manager of a trust that we would operate on our own, as opposed to having the city continue to manage that $1 million.
I'm going to go out on
a lot of options. I mean, just because I'm on a board for an HOA with not quite $1 million in reserves, we use a lot of banks and layered CDs and get much better interest. And you can we don't even go out that far and get better interest than we're getting here. So the ability to do that kind of thing would be good.
I think even the Friends actually do pretty well with their investment.
You guys used to do that. You had
But-
weird CDs.
I think the answer.
In the past had done that.
I think the answer is right here. I mean, I think that this is why I think it would be interesting to maybe go back and even have a conversation with Fred. I'm pretty sure that the trustees at that time wanted to establish the foundation for that very purpose, is to have a way to invest funds for capital campaigns. So they're just not as organized as they should have been by now. But, it might be worth a call to him, David, to find out, can you maybe share with us what was the intention of that group of trustees when they established the foundation back in 2015? I'm pretty sure that's what it was about. So that could be the place where you would establish your investment plans, and that's where you could put some of the money. Why would we go out to anywhere else? I mean, when we've already got an organization that's been recognized by the city as a way to do that. Yes.
Since I'm relatively new to this, I've been trying to figure out the purpose of all of these various pots of money. So let's go out into the future a little ways, and let's say the foundation has raised $40,000 and we've paid back the note. You've got $2 million plus. The Friends have close to $2 million. We've hired an architect and we get a bill for $500,000. Who pays it?
The city.
With the city, yeah.
City.
But out of what fund?
Well, either they would have their own funds, or we would have agreed to pay those out of one of those pots of money. Does that answer your question? That could be one of those things where if Measure J, to be didn't pay for that, but let's say that the city came to the foundation and said, we'd like for you guys to commit to covering these costs to this project, then it might be something that would fall over to the foundation, that they would have raised the money to pay that bill. Does that answer your question?
And I think what you would do is, if you pledge $1 million and the Friends pledge $1 million and you pledge $1 million, you write a check to the city of Palm Springs. They put that in the city's fund, and they pay the bills.
I totally disagree with that. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I didn't give you no chance to shut up.
And then the city pays the
You're
bills.
absolutely correct. You're right.
You make a donation to the city.
Well, it really isn't, that's what I was just talking to him about, is that there needs to be a compact or a formal document established on how we transfer money back and forth, not back and forth, but one way over to the city. And Dr. Reddy said that's true. We have to figure that out. But you're right, then we would all write checks and it would
Chester
go.
Wellwood Library, because we have to give money for the Wellwood Library, but we also wanted our money to be the last money in. So that will be coming
From the
up
trust
in
fund.
terms of how do we do that. The complication I see with most of this is a city building. Therefore, the city has to be the party that contracts for repairs, insurance, architects, whatever. And but the payment on it, they would expect some agreement on payment. And if the money's coming from a pot that they don't control, they need an agreement. I don't think with Wellwood they worried about that.
And I misspoke when I talked about the trust funds giving money to the city. You would write a check. You would not. The
already
city
have
would
it.
just go get it.
That's right, they have it.
And that's how we've done our projects
They
in
have
the
the
past.
money.
They just subtract it from your account, and then we see the audit
That's
of
correct.
what was paid, because we were surprised when some of the things were being paid to payroll, and they said, well, they're
But
working
now
on your
the Friends
project.
have a process in place now. They give you money to pay for something, right? So how does that work?
It depends.
No,
It's
I
very
mean,
Is there a
complicated.
signature that's required from David that says you can pay for this? That's an appropriate, because I think taking
No, if the
money
Friends
out of
are-
our funds to pay for things without a sign off on it is inappropriate for the city.
No,
On the Friends, if the Friends are paying for something for us,
But hold that thought. Hold that
Okay.
thought. So I think I know Kathy's question.
Oh.
When we do the budget every year and we put money in those projects, that's us telling the city that here's the money for Wellwood that we've agreed to pay you. That's our approval right there when we do the budget. And that's the money, that's the only amount of money they can pull without coming back and asking us for more money. Does that answer your question?
That does,
Yeah.
yeah. So that we need to know that when we approve it.
Correct.
it's
Like-
recorded in your minutes, which are public documents. That it's
Well,
the
this was
amount.
before you guys too, but there was a heated discussion about 147 is it in the change. We're not giving any more because they kept coming back asking for more and we
We
just
also
cut it off.
said last in.
Yes, we did. Now, that was a change after that decision, but our budget would reflect what the city can pull from our accounts for that particular project. Now, back to you.
Sure.
If you guys go to the Friends and say, we want $100,000 to paint my office,
Sure.
and they say yes, how do they give that money to the city in order for you to do that?
They would write a check to the city of Palm Springs for that. You've added a complication on that because someone's doing a service in the building, and that's different. If they bought chairs, they would write a check to the vendor, and the
just
chairs
give you the chairs.
arrive.
The invoice would go
And how does the
Yeah.
city allow you to accept those chairs?
The city says they're happy to have gifts show up on our doorstep.
And there's no change of title? That chair is still owned by the Friends?
But they don't.
Legally? They paid for it?
They donate it to the.
They donate
donated
it. So
to
there's
the
a
city.
donation process from the Friends. Okay, I got you.
I
And
have a question from the standpoint of the foundation, and this might not be the right place for it, but if we give $5 million for the new whatever is going to happen, if we raise that money and give it to the city, does that somehow affect our tax exempt status for the donors? No.
No. So the way that would work is that it would be much more detailed than we're going to give you $5 million. The city would have a line item budget we would agree to that would say, you're going to spend $1.1 million for
Whatever, yeah.
clocks. I mean, they're going to tell you what they want from us, right? And we would agree that we're going to fund that. And as we fund it, we wouldn't donate it because the foundation I've always worked in, they didn't go out to vendors and buy things. They gave the money to the city for their vendors to pay their bills, right? So unlike the Friends.
And we could do either.
So,
With the Friends, we've done either way.
I just can't see the foundation hiring enough people to go out and determine that this company is the best company to do business with,
I just
right?
meant, is giving the money to a city, any city, to
Oh,
this
the
city?
city's a
Just-
nonprofit
Okay,
yeah.
entity.
okay, that's what I meant.
That's why we're established the way we
Yeah.
are.
Okay.
What's missing is that agreement, because the foundation, and this is how Dave and I were talking about this. What happens if
We're being,
let's say Mr. Massner comes in and says, I want to give you $5 million for a state-of-the-art conference room that we can also use for whatever, right? For the film festival, right? And I want to name it the Massner Conference Room. That naming part, the city has rules on already, but they don't want to turn that money away. So they've said they've got to figure out how they're going to take money to name things in a building. And so this agreement would be for us to go out and sell the naming rights to that building, as well as raise money to pay for those tangible items. That makes sense?
and that's what that compact is.
That's what that compact
all about, is you helping them decide the naming rights threshold.
It also gives us the authority that the city says, okay, guys, Measure J is going to cover 90% of this. Foundation, you go out and raise the other 10%. I mean, it's not a given that we're going to do that, right? We might say, whoa, no.
But there's nothing in our bylaws that says.
That's correct. That compact would allow us to say, okay, well, we think we can raise, it's a kind of a two-way agreement, how you're going to raise the money and the timeline you have, and the city would say, okay, when you get to a certain amount of money, we'll release it and we'll buy this stuff for the library. There's all kinds of things that are tied into it. It's not just write them a check, write to friends.
How did you deal with naming rights in San Francisco?
And naming rights, we had an agreement with the city that we named, when anybody wanted to put their name on anything, pretty much, we would establish, we actually had a price list that had every possible naming opportunity, that when we went out to raise money, we'd say, if you want to name this, whatever, here's the price. And then they would donate to that and specifically restrict the funds to name something within the building. Yeah.
So I have a very practical question. So when we go out and ask for money and people say, fine, I'll give you $200 for the foundation, are they writing the check to the Palm Springs Public Library
Foundation.
Or are they writing it to the city of Palm Springs?
Foundation.
To the foundation. Because I think a lot of people don't want to write a check to the city of Palm Springs.
Maybe to the foundation. Just like it does to the friends.
And if you're writing it to the foundation, you're the 501c3.
That's correct.
So that gives them the tax exemption.
That's correct. So yeah, they're writing, and sometimes you may have someone say, and that $200 is going to buy a chair, or I don't care what you use it for, right? So then you have to determine, is it restricted or not, as we've been talking about. Does that answer your question?
This is what this guy's going to teach us. Right.
Yeah, the consultants are used to doing that. Yeah.
How we sell.
Yeah. Well, this has been a great conversation. I think it's timely. So I'm glad that the foundation members were here, the executive board, so you can kind of hear what's next, what we have to have. So thank you. And thank you again, David. Good job. Any idea we've been spending an hour on it? Good work. All right. Can we go back to public comments? I mean, you guys have pretty much made your comments, but would you like to make any more comments? I think you know by now you can speak up. Do we have a report from the Friends?
So Nancy's on vacation, so the things to report are obviously the Legacy Wall has been here and will be here until Saturday. The Friends had a reception with Library Board of Trustees, the foundation, and invited guests and members of the Friends last Friday with the Legacy Wall staff, and that went very well.
Very nice.
And people were able to kind of mix and mingle, get to know each other, and see the wall and celebrate the wall being here at the library. And then almost every day that the wall has been here, we've had student groups coming in from at least 10 different schools within at least 2 different districts coming in and bringing students in to see the wall. So that has been fabulous. So overall, we feel like it's been a very successful thing, and the Friends really help support it to bring it here to the library. So that's why it's in their report. They will be having a book sale on Saturday, December 14th, and then Sunday, December 15th. So the December 14th on Saturday will be from 10 to 2, and on Sunday it'll be from 10 to 1, and that'll be a bag sale day, a $4 bag sale. And their modernism events, Modernism Week tickets went on sale November 1st. And the Friends have 3 events this year. They've already sold out several of their house tour slots. Their exhibit is doing really well, and their lecture here is over a third sold out as well, and that's only been 21 days that things have been on sale, so they're very optimistic and excited about modernism this year. So with that's all I have.
What was the date, the time on the Sunday bag sale? Do you have that?
December 15th is the Sunday, and it's from 10 to 1.
10 to 1, sorry, I missed that.
Thank you.
And Palm Springs speaks because they're part of that?
Oh, yes, thank you. The first event, Robert Reich, was
Wonderful.
on Friday, November 8th, and we've
That's
got
very
very positive feedback. The surveys that were sent out have overall been very positive for the first event of the season. Many of the Friends Board members have also given feedback that they thought that was probably one of the best events we've had so far. So everything went smoothly. He was a fabulous speaker.
How was
I won't say this is the best, but it was one of the best.
How was attendance?
The attendance was pretty good. We were probably about 3/4 of the house full. So
Over 500.
yeah.
He was a great speaker.
And how many speakers are left for the season?
We have 2 scheduled. We have Dame Joan Collins on Sunday, January 26th, and then Bob Woodward on Friday, March 6th.
And so that's the same amount or an increase?
Usually we do 3 or 4. It just
3 or
depends
4.
on, but every year it's been 3 or 4.
Do you think you'll have another one?
Possibly. There
Good.
is somebody we are still
Actually
talking
working
with.
on one, another bonus event.
Very good. It was great. I enjoyed it. I didn't know what I expected because I've never really heard him speak, but I think everybody was kind of surprised that he's about this tall. But it was really energizing. I think that he just kind of electrified that room. I thought it was a great presentation.
Yeah. People stayed for
Yeah.
people didn't leave. They stayed for all the Q&A, and there were people
Well, it was so
staying.
timely. His
Yeah.
conversation was so timely.
The Q&A was probably the only weak part of it.
It was
Yeah.
extra long, I
No,
thought.
I don't think it was extra long. I actually thought the person conducting it was a bit rude.
Oh, it was
to the
tricky.
public.
Yeah, that was tricky.
And that, we shouldn't have that happen.
All right, thank you. Library Foundation, Mr. President, do you have any reports?
No, I don't.
Yes,
So
you-
we're working very hard to bulk up and turn into a real organization. And I think everybody's kind of aware of that we were playing catch up and clean up, and we'll get there.
How do you, where do you put yourself with the theater? Because there are a couple of other big fundraising things going on. One is Oswet, where they've been pretty successful. They're close to their goal. And the other that's just starting is the theater that needs to raise $12 million. So how do you think about, have you thought about how you're positioned vis-a-vis those two fundraising
We haven't had any
efforts?
official discussions about that, but my opinion is that we're definitely not in competition with them. And we're as a result of our experience with our consultants, our big fundraising push isn't going to be until the shovel is ready to hit the ground for whatever happens here. So we're a while away from that, and I think the Oswego Canyon and the theater will be well underway by the time we even start, practically speaking.
I don't think you can be shovel ready to hit the ground, because the shovel won't hit the ground unless the money's in place. So that, as a former builder and lender, I spent 17 years lending on construction projects. Usually they don't start unless you're doing it in a phased way, unless you know you have all the funds available.
I think part of our that's not a problem, but why we have just moved ahead as well, because we didn't know until a couple of weeks ago what was going to happen. Are they going to build a new library? If they're going to build a new library, where's it going to be? So we've only just found out that the job is going to be renovation.
We don't know that yet.
Oh, we don't.
We only know the site.
We only know the site, we don't know that it's renovation or new.
There you go.
I mean, maybe
Who are we going to ask? Are we going to ask for large amounts of money for something that we don't know?
We're gonna
need.
need a plan for you to be able to
That's
fundraise
correct.
for.
And maybe
And so-
that should have been what I said, sort of shovel hits the ground. We
Okay,
don't know what
yeah,
we're ready
it
for.
just worried me because that would push things. I mean, and you wouldn't know how much you needed. I mean, it would be,
Right.
Okay, anything else?
And I think it just in terms of psychologically, sorry to back it up, but I don't think we can think of those as competition. I think that would be counterproductive. I think, you know, if they give $1 to the theater, they won't give $1 to us. I think we're equally as important. And,
different donors.
yeah.
Okay.
We've talked about trying to start some fundraising yet this year, but it's become pretty clear that we really don't have the support staff to do that yet. We need to get more members and get an organization operating before we can really be serious.
And you've been working on the organization of that list and...
No. All I have is the list from the Smoke Tree event, which does not have email addresses on it.
Right.
So, and it has a lot of errors which could be fixed, but then we're stuck with snail mail. It's the only thing off of that list, and that's all we have, unless our vendor has something.
Yeah.
Can we look at that list at the next foundation meeting and come up with, we may have the emails, you can add it to your list to make it more robust.
Yeah, you sent me the list, and then I looked at it, and I highlighted quickly some things that were glaring errors to me, but yeah, we can, it's an Excel spreadsheet, so
Right.
it
Did
can
that
be.
one have email on it?
No,
Okay.
no, but some of the cities, it's almost like the city column got out of alignment on the spreadsheet.
Oh,
and
that did actually happen at your vendor because the invited, and it was all skewed, and I'm actually the one who discovered it, and I contacted Buzz Factory, and then they tried to correct it, but I don't know that the list ever got corrected then.
It's a mess.
Okay.
Yeah, so that actually did happen.
Okay. I'll find it,
Yeah.
or I'll work on it.
Thank you.
Well, we started getting all those.
I think we've addressed the trust fund financial discussion, right? Okay. Jenny, is there any update to the building committee from your perspective?
I have made a request for the subcommittee to come together, the city council subcommittee, and that's still pending. So I think that that's the next step. Don't you agree that the next step is
Refresh my memory. So you're talking about the city council members, or are you talking about what
Yeah.
they were talking about that night that we were there?
No, the city council members to just, I know you had requested a meeting, and when I went to request the meeting, they said, well, do you want the subcommittee members there? And yes, of course, I think that they should be there, and I think we should just have a check-in meeting to figure out what they want, how they want to direct the staff
Okay.
to do, because we're ready to do stuff, but
David mentioned that
not.
the firm of Mark Rios was interested in working on the site plan and some other issues when he introduced them at the groundbreaking for the new park. And it just seems to me like we should keep this going. Otherwise, we lose all the momentum we gained.
That night, because we were there until the bitter end, Dr. Reddy kind of took the final discussion and kind of tried to capture what the city council had recommended, which included forming, when you said subcommittee, that's what I was thought you were talking about, another subcommittee that was made up of the original building committee and possibly looking at some other members to join that for the next phase. I'm sorry, you weren't there, but I
Or
mean,
possibly a different building.
Good refresher. I did watch it, but yeah,
Right.
I wasn't thinking about that part, but I was just ready for the check-in to say,
Yeah.
what's next? Let's
well,
do it. Let's
I
keep it
assume-
going.
Do we know if we're going to have the same city council members yet?
Well, you're going to have Lisa and Christy for sure.
Okay.
And
And whether
we
they're-
don't know if they're going to be our subcommittee, but they are now, and
There's 2 new council persons coming on.
sure. But, yeah, we don't know if it's going to be the same.
There won't be any, they'll announce it at 5 o'clock tonight. It'll be final from the Riverside County as to who the city council is, but the margins are so significant that they won't change.
But you're right, it's possible that our subcommittee appointees could change. Because we've had Mayor Moon and Chris Mills as ours. We've had Moon and Mills, Mills and Lewin.
I just made the assumption that's
Changes.
what they were waiting on, of course, is for the new council to be seated, and then they would make assignments.
possible.
You know, I mean, what can we do right now, but, yeah.
There was also a push, and I don't know what priority this is to change this whole park area so that there's more interaction between the different agencies that are on this park. Is that going to come before the library or after the library?
Those
Or
are
as part of the next
questions,
phase.
but that's why I was saying that Dr. Reddy said that he had been talking with the firm of Rios Clemente who did the park. And when I was there, and because I was on the park subcommittee for the downtown park for 4 years, I asked them if they had been talking, and they said yes, but they hadn't been engaged yet. So he's clearly started some of what he had talked about with the city council that night, because he had mentioned them.
Okay.
But my sense is that we need to push it, or it'll just linger.
One of the things I'm kind of looking forward to is I think at that meeting, Dr. Reddy mentioned something about actually addressing the cost issue and doing a little research about that. So I'd certainly like to see that. Whatever he's about to do with that.
What council had said was that they need to both look at the existing building and what it would cost to renovate and what it would cost to build new or do the other things and make that kind of decision. However, some of the members who said those things are now gone, or will be gone on the 4th.
And
So-
I did give my opinion to David Reddy about those 2 parallel tracks, and if we paid a consultant to do both, we are essentially potentially wasting half of that money. Because if you build a brand new building, the sky's the limit. Or it's not. You could say, you can limit yourself, and you could say our library's $10 million. Or you could say, you know what, we're going to build a showpiece and it's $100 million. So it's whatever we say it is for new.
But it actually isn't. It's always cheaper to build new than it is to renovate.
Yep.
And so the question is, what do we need? But we have to have some starting points. But the site plan was one of the key starting points that they were looking at. And hopefully they will continue to look at that, because the firm they talked about is creative and wonderful. That along with David, I'd be excited to see that process started.
So I guess our next step is just to keep checking in and trying to keep the ball rolling
Yes.
to get something
And he knows that we're waiting, so.
going. Yeah, we're eager to keep it going and not get forgotten. And
I don't think we will.
yeah,
Thank you. Awareness campaign?
Julie is going to report on this one.
Yeah, so because of the building committee, I didn't get a chance to add it to your agenda last month. So the library awareness campaign, which you approved, the initial budget of $25,000 to do an awareness campaign as part of the strategic plan. Then it involved many different advertising venues, promotional venues, avenues, and different collaborations. So this is currently where we are. So we did engage the Jones Agency here in Palm Springs to do creative. And I'm going to share that creative work with you. I only have the initial set, so it's just to circulate to show you. So their take on it was basically our library logo and playing off of that, and then each of the taglines would go to promote some different type of service, and so you're going to see that. So for instance, Palm Springs Library, your destination. This is a rack card that will talk about all the different types of things that you can do here. Destination entertainment, highlighting our audiobooks, e-magazines, e-books, movies, and so on. Destination storytelling, highlighting our events and things to do here at the library. Destination knowledge, to broaden your mind with year-round classes and events. Destination travel. Destination unplug. This is your time to unplug and spend time with your family here instead of always on electronics and things like that. So that kind of gives you the sense of the campaign. And then there are different creative, yeah, absolutely. I was going to pass it all. So different creative work was done for different things. So for instance, destination entertainment. This was specifically designed for a bus shelter. And so this is showing you, oh, thank you. So this is showing you that example live in the medium.
So cute.
And I'm going to give you updates specific to all this. I want to share the creative first. This is destination storytelling. So this is specifically designed to go into movie theaters. Destination travel. This was specifically designed to go on actual buses. I'll get the travel part. Destination unplugged. So there is a line here for social media and ads and things. So this is specific destination unplugged. This is a social media destination travel, and so on. Are there any other new ones? Past it for a minute.
Very nice.
So, and then this is
I love that. Or the look better.
destination imagination. So yeah, so that is the creative campaign that was created by Jones Agency. We also purchased some specific new web addresses so that we're going to introduce to also track this. So one of them is just PS Library. And so that will be our sign off to, then we'll track that activity. So we did start the campaign. As I said, it would be November, December, January was the 3-month campaign timeline. So we did start it, kicked it off during Pride. And as in your update, the first radio ads played on KGay. We had 3-week runs. Hopefully you heard some of them if you listen to KGay. And the theater ads are up and running in the Camelot theaters now. They're up in November and then into December. And you saw the dates there in your update. Radio ads have also begun on U92.7. And you saw that schedule. So they were first running in this month in November, and then we'll have December and January. Sunline Bus Stop, we're opening 3 shelter ads and 2 bus lines. And they will start in the 1st of December and continue through that month. And so we've been in the process of getting those approved. They're at the printers now, so that's a process, and signing all the lovely paperwork that we have to do with them. We did cancel the downtown banner because it was determined that the city would be taking over the center space for the theater, and our banner was canceled. And I didn't feel that the north or the south end locations gave us the advantage that we really were looking for based on the expense of the banner. So I did cancel the banner.
So you're saving how much now? Because it was expensive.
It was. And it was a good savings.
We always thought that this $25,000 was kind of cheap, so it's good to see that you got some money to use it somewhere else.
Yes. So the downtown banner was about $3,000 roughly, a little bit over when I had to pay the fees to put it up and down.
Are we doing any of this in Spanish?
Yeah. So some of the radio ads and the I don't have it there, but the card is in Spanish. It's English on one side and Spanish on the other. It's actually going to the printer. I got the final file, and we were doing radio ads in Spanish. And so let's
Bus
see.
stops in Spanish?
None of our bus stops are in Spanish right now. No,
Because
I had not planned that.
That seems to me, when I look at the people that take the bus on Vista Chino, it's really Hispanic people taking the bus, and I remember comments from them on the districting campaign of why don't you let us know about things and the bus stops, because that's where we are.
I did, when I proposed this initially, I had called out the Spanish things, and I hadn't called that out, but actually it went to the printer today. I don't know if I could call it back and see if I could do one of those.
If we've saved money, maybe we could do some bus stops.
An additional?
Yeah,
I think we added some radio ads. Was that the radio ads we added in place of some of the banners?
I did use a little bit of that money, yes.
Yeah.
I added the K-Gate
The
to start out
K-Gate.
with Pride. But that's not the lion's share.
Right.
I can look into that.
And one of the things that the Jones Agency was talking about on the bus ads and the bus shelters is that a lot of the people who are going to see it are not the people riding the bus either.
It's the people driving,
And-
as you're doing the interior ones. The thing about bus shelter ads, especially if you pick it well, it stays up, not the month you put it up, it stays up forever. And it can stay up for a year, and you can just buy a $200 ad and you have it for a really long time.
I was wondering if that's underused, because there's sure a lot of them that are still for the political campaign for the council.
When Lisa ran her ads, some of her ads stayed up for a year. So it, if you can.
Well, we did ask for high traffic areas, so I do know, I didn't bring that, but we are on Sunrise and Ramon is one of them, and we have one on Farrell, but I don't remember the cross street on that right now.
How about Gene Autry, just south of Viscachino?
I don't think we had a Gene Autry location at this
Grace
time.
Garner is still there.
Anyway, so
there are 5 of them there, and those are good locations. Ramon is a really good location because families drive through Demuth Park.
right.
There are 1 or 2 near Desert Highlands, which wouldn't be the Spanish-speaking ones, but there are 2 in the Desert Highlands where all of the kids in that area take the bus.
But maybe
So,
something we could look at for the future, because we've already been assigned we already have our space, we already have our order in, and things have been.
Okay,
But
in the
I
future,
definitely.
Is that something that if you ask the agency about in terms of which locations get better feedback from a Spanish-speaking audience, that they would have the answer?
Sunlight could give me that, yeah.
Sunlight.
Sunlight.
And the campaigns could tell you which ones are effective.
Okay, let's see. So the record is in English and Spanish, as I said, and the Spanish, the radio is now getting translated. So we do have some online banner ads coming for both Palm Springs Life and the Desert Sun, and we're working on a promotional item with the agency as well. They have not given me that information yet, so that's to come. But again, it's a 3-month campaign, so you're going to see this coming and going. It's supposed to be layered so that not everything's out there at the same time, that hopefully things are overlapping and things are continuing. So, it's fun, it's exciting to see what will be happening.
Julie, how much do the movie theaters cost?
The movie theaters, they gave me a deal.
Do you get Sunline for free? I know the city gets 6
No,
bucks.
no, I don't. We do pay. We do get a reduced rate. I am not using the city's allotment. Let's see. I'm paying $300 a month for the theater, and that's less than what they charge others. We got a discount.
I was just thinking that would be a good way to share the information of the new programs that you're operating that people can have access to. I mean, these are really exciting, but people wouldn't know. But that movie theater, I mean, you sit there and you just wait and read everything that's there. So.
Yep.
We'd love to get more things on the city's TV channel too. But it's just a matter of doing it. And these, I love these so much, and I thought these are great. We should use them in the library too. So they're sending us or send us the files so that we could even make these as posters and put them in the appropriate section for the library, especially the movie, the one Many Great Movies started as books, and then have that in the movie the DVD section, just to kind of share the brand.
They're lovely.
Of all the stuff in
Really
here.
good job.
Yeah.
How do you think how do you track these things? I mean, I know how I track stuff in my own business, but how do you track them? How do you know that someone saw them?
Well, good question. So one of the ways that we're doing that is, like I said, we did do a special URL for that, so we'll be tracking those kinds of things online. And then we're going to be, looking at just statistics through the door and things like that. But it's an awareness campaign. It's not a call to action. So that's very different than where I have a measured, So it's going to be, looking at our statistics and what happens there, and trying to see, what kind of feedback we get over the next 3 months. Again, it's just more of trying to lay the foundation for messages to come.
Yeah.
And actually, the Jones Agency was very interesting. They had some fun ideas for if we wanted to do a next phase, and kind of creating kind of a club 300, for the library being at 300 Sunrise, and kind of, taking that to the next level. So they have some interesting ideas that at one point we might want to explore. But again, this is just raising awareness, trying to hopefully get people to think about the library and be like, oh yeah, well, I didn't realize that all these things are available at the library.
Good, thank you.
But we'll be overall monitoring the statistics.
Thank you. Meeting date changes beginning January 2020.
The city council has moved their meeting dates to the second and fourth Thursdays, and that means we're on the curb. We got the boot for our meeting date, so we can no longer meet on the fourth Thursday, and then it was a competition to try to find a date that would work for us, that we could be recorded on TV, and I believe I sent that in an email, and I don't have any information. What did we pick? The first, what was it going to be? The first Tuesday?
Yeah, that was.
Is that what we said?
Does the foundation meet
The second Thursday.
and the Friends?
The second Tuesday.
Second Tuesday. Was it? Oh, no, maybe it was the first Wednesday, because it was the first Wednesday of the month, because we have a conflict January 1st.
Oh, yeah, it was the first Tuesday.
So the first month we already have a conflict. But then, if I checked everything, it looks like we're okay. There were no days available to us. So it is technically all relative, because we meet monthly. So instead of being at the end, we'd be at the beginning, and so there's not that much change. The only difference is what you would receive in your packets. We can't run financials to have them to you. They would be a month behind, but then it would always be a month behind, because I can't get statistics to you, because they're not even produced at that point until the second or third of the month, to make all of the transactions don't go in and get recorded, and then to run the reports and have them in your packets the week before, it's actually not physically possible at all.
So that first Wednesday would allow us to still meet at City Hall and be recorded.
Yes.
Is that the only date they have available?
Yes.
I can't make that meeting. I won't be back till the 13th of January.
But going forward in January, would you be able to do that?
Yeah.
Well, and we could, January's meeting could be special. We could have it here or on another
Well, it's
day.
supposed to be our annual meeting, right?
Yes, with
January?
elections.
With
Mhm.
elections. So,
Yeah, let me see what all of the,
Those Wednesday mornings, right?
yeah, meeting date. Let's see. I was trying to find the original, the email, but it was the first Wednesday,
And it was
correct?
the morning. Yes, and it was the morning.
The morning.
I thought it was the morning meeting.
So you're looking
Was it
at
the
January
afternoon?
6th?
No.
If we went to the third Thursday, we wouldn't be in conflict with the city council.
But you're in conflict with the planning commission, I believe, and the city only has one recording device. So if they meet in the city council chambers
Planning Commission meets the second and fourth Wednesdays.
Wednesday. And
So
then,
they're going to get bumped.
No, not if city council has moved to the second and fourth Thursdays.
Well, so there's planning.
Yeah, Planning Commission often got bumped by city council if they set up a special meeting
So
on.
we might not be in conflict if we go third Thursday.
you
no,
might-
I can't do, the third Thursday is Measure J. Is that what you said, the third Thursday? Yes, Measure J.
So they're just having, this is a little Thursdays.
So the only date that was available to us, we were also fighting with the Arts Commission, and they took the third Wednesday before I could get it. And I responded within an hour, I think. So the first Wednesday was the only date that I could find.
and Tuesday
I
was
think.
not an
So you're the
option.
first Wednesday and not the first Monday? I thought you said the first Monday.
The first Wednesday. What did you say?
Tuesdays are out.
I don't remember. I'm sorry. Why am I not? That's what I'm looking for. Hold on just a second.
But you want some time to review those dates? I mean,
Yeah, I was trying to find the original email about the dates that were available. And
So the one in
And I
January.
can't find it.
Off track because I planned my vacations around our previous calendar. I'd appreciate that. Especially.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I would appreciate that. We could have it after the 13th to the 30th, except not the 20th.
Well, January, we can, if we want to have it here, we could just look at our room schedule and do it whenever we decide. We don't, and we would just do the audio recording. And then,
And I would hope that it wouldn't be on a Wednesday then.
I actually have a conflict in April, actually.
And I will have one in February.
well, we probably,
I'm going to see the
because
dates.
January is our annual meeting, we could pick a special day for that because we have
And then go across to the Pacific.
things to discuss at that, right?
For a 5-day.
Why don't you go through and again,
I
send it
can't,
to
why I don't
It's okay.
have this information. I know.
Send it to us and we'll put it back on the agenda for next time.
Yeah, I just needed to,
Something about.
That's all right.
I needed to report to them so we could have it booked on the TV schedule. I can't find all this first off, Seymour, hold on. Here it is. Okay, hold on, I found it.
Okay.
I don't know how to use my Outlook on my phone. Okay,
Go for it.
I asked for that date, they said no. They said the only dates that were, well, they were suggesting the first and third Wednesday. I asked for the third, and then they said no, the Public Arts Commission took it. And then the first Wednesday from 3 to 5 is available, and that was really all that was available.
First Wednesday, 3 to 5.
Because I looked at every day of the week, and every day of the week there are different commissions, and and the second.
If that's what you can get, we probably will have to change it. It'll just be when we change it so that people's schedules match. I mean, I don't want you to go through more grief to do this. It's hard enough, but if we can start it in February and...
Because I wouldn't mind other days of the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Mondays are pretty light on our schedules. That would be a lovely day for me, but it doesn't work for the city. So it's just complicated, and it's not the greatest day to have a board meeting because, like I said, our reports aren't ready. Your statistics are all going to be a month late.
Well, let's take that day.
It is what it is.
And next month we'll discuss when we want to meet in January, since it's our annual meeting. And in the December meeting, we have to name a nominating committee, and we have to prepare for that annual meeting, right? So that needs to be on the agenda to discuss as well. And then, as Kathy suggested, starting in February, we can start meeting the first Wednesday of the month. And as we've seen this year, sometimes we change the day. I mean, we just have to, like today, right?
Right. And the nice thing, if we do pick the first Wednesday, I think the only conflict is January. We don't have a November conflict or a December conflict like we used to.
Because the holidays are at the end of the month.
Yeah.
We just end up having board trustee member conflicts.
Yeah.
But we've had those all year too.
Yeah, and that happens from time to time. And yeah, if somebody's on vacation, that happens. I mean, I go on vacation too. And this would be, actually the nice thing, I guess the pro about having it early is that you get to meet before, and again, it's all relative, but you get to meet before city council. And sometimes when we have special projects, they're waiting for you to meet so that then it could then go to council. And if you're on the 4th and they've already had 2 meetings in that month, then the project's delayed until you all can have a meeting to then report back on the next month. So if you meet first, then, and again, it's all relative, but I think I can see some positives to having your meetings earlier in the month.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
All right. And our next item is the annual report that you shared with us.
Here's the, if you don't have it with you, Julie printed off copies. Thank you for your patience on that one and it not being in the packet. But we're very excited. This typically it happens this time of year when we do the annual report. Thanks to Julie so much. She did most of it, majority of all of this. So every year Julie compiles all of our annual statistics and reports them to the state library, and then we compile highlights for you, the board, and for the public. And then as part of your bylaws, you turn in an annual report to the city council, and they receive and file this annual report. We're going to send it in. So wanted to get your approval to send it to city council for their next meeting as part of our annual procedure to turn in our statistics. And I can answer questions if you have questions.
I love these. I keep them in my folder right here.
These are on hand in the library.
Once it's approved by everybody, then we print copies and
Present it at city council first, and then we put it out in the library and different places, but yeah, it usually goes to city council.
and it's on our website too.
You changed your photo.
I did. I have 2 new photos that I can use in rotation now.
Anything else, Jeannie? Any questions from the trustees?
No, we just need you to approve it.
I make a motion to approve it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. Another good year. Any other reports from staff?
I just had a question. Public service hours, what does that involve?
The hours that the library's open.
So the library, Wellwood is open more hours than
That's
this
correct.
library?
It's open 7 days a week. We're open 6. The Wellwood opens at 9 a.m. every day. We open at 10 a.m. every day. They close at 9 p.m. every day. We close are varied between 8, 6, and 5 at night. So because of their location, that they're right in downtown, and because it's the shared space with tourism, it is a tourism hub, it was, when it was reopened, designated to be open 7 days a week in those hours.
You know, I think, because I'm looking at last year's numbers, that maybe sometime we might want to have a conversation about this, because there really aren't too many numbers that are going up year to year. Like,
Well,
I mean, and maybe there's a reason for some of these. I mean, you know, like the classic one is always public computer sessions, because people are using cell phones, and that's going to go down.
Right.
well, many of our numbers did go up. Our door count did not, but our circulation did, circulation of materials. So they might not be coming in, but they're taking more. And then our ebooks have gone up 2,000. You're right, the computer sessions have gone down, and they've gone down year after year, and that is due to new technologies. And our Wi-Fi sessions have gone up. Our program attendance is steady, but it's very high for what we have to use the rooms and the places. To have 10,500 people come to the library for programs, we're so proud of that. And
But why are volunteer hours down so significantly?
Volunteers vary, so at different times we'll have more volunteers than other times. So, we spike up at certain times of the year, and then that drops off, and, people leave, come and go. So volunteer, numbers of volunteers, and then how many hours they give, it totally is dependent on what we have going on. We have set volunteer responsibilities in the library where somebody is there, set hours, but then we also fluctuate with events and things like that. So it fluctuates constantly.
And these numbers are really up over the past 5 years because we've really worked to develop the volunteer program.
Yeah, that's why it was so surprising to me to see them going down.
People move away. We have some people who are very, very loyal, regular people. They're here for hours and hours every week, and then they move away, and we just lost, a couple of really great people.
And I'm also interested in the door count at Wellwood. Why did that go down so much?
It's just gone down and down. People can't say for sure, but when it first opened, we had a huge door count, and then as the interest has waned, and the door count was up because they put the downtown model there, and people would go in to look at that, and so that drove door count up. So it's been open 5 years, and maybe it's not as new and interesting as it used to be when it first opened.
But it's also like in the heart of like a tourism area. So that's why I'm wondering, why are people not just wandering in to up this count?
They might wander into the new Starbucks in the square across the street.
Because those are more shiny and new.
That's more shiny
Right.
and new. I think that.
Or they might have already got their information at the visitor center when they first came in, so then they don't need to. And just, different things.
Yeah,
Your
I'll watch it.
impact
I'm
it.
watching
Your
it.
summer program's up 53%.
Yeah, that was amazing.
That's great, but what did you do different? Did you add more programs?
The
this summer?
reputation has grown. This is the 3rd year we've given away free books, and
Every week.
yeah, And so we spend $20,000 of the Friends money, which they got grants for, to give away free books. And I think that's, people are telling their friends about that. And so word of mouth is like, hey, you can get free books at the library at summer reading. And they came in. And we really did a push this year to enroll the parents. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they really pushed that one this year. And so you see the adult sign up went from 466 last year to 652 this year on adults. And so
have you reached your max? With the size facility, can you serve more?
the program, the youth programs are pretty full. No, we could always decide to add a second program. Palm Desert Library used to be capacity crowd, and we added second shows, and then you didn't really see a lot of people coming to the second show, so then you drop the second show. And so there are things we could do. I think we added volunteers to help at the registration tables, and we have the registration tables staffed all the times that we're open, which is something new too. We've tried to help our staff by turning that over to volunteers. So
yeah, that's a very impressive increase.
Thank you. There are things that I love statistics, and I watch them, and you watch it and you go, well, why is the door count down? And maybe they're getting their ebooks instead. Maybe they're doing ebooks and streaming, and they don't have to come in and get it. Or maybe at home they've paid for streaming and they don't have to come get the DVDs like they used to.
I just think these narratives are so important when we're talking about renovating or new buildings and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so that we can actually talk about, especially when we get to the point where we actually start talking about programming issues for the renovated or new library.
Well, and we did lower the number of programs on purpose. That was something that Jeannie was saying. We do push ourselves to do as many programs as we can, but sometimes, it's too many, or we want to do something a little different or better. And so we kind of really looked at, why are we doing these programs, and when are we doing them? I also had to reduce based on conflict with the baseball. Let's be honest, I can't do programs in baseball fields. I just get too many complaints. It's too difficult. So yeah, I could, but I stopped. I also have stopped bringing in some of the maybe better known people, because people get super mad when they're turned away. I mean, I brought in HTTP people, and I got slammed so hard about, you could have had them again. We waited, and why did you turn me away? And it's like, I only have this much space, and things like that. And so, we've adjusted, we've done things, whereas in the past, maybe I would try something bigger, but then it would be successful, but, it would also have these repercussions. So, we make some choices based on what we have right now. Doesn't mean that won't be the case going forward, but...
And we try to vary some of our youth programs. We noticed that the Star Wars program, the attendance has waned, and so we're not doing the Star Wars program this year. We're going to try different things.
Right.
Yeah, we watch that stuff. We watch to make sure that we're still relevant. And last year we had a huge Harry Potter Halloween party, and I don't even know how many people were here. 500, 800, a lot.
It was big.
It was crazy. And then this year we didn't do that, and I know the attendance was super low comparatively, and so this year our numbers are gonna hurt, because we don't want to do the same thing every year. We want to try new things, and we want to mix it up, and so we take all of that into consideration. So thank you for asking about that.
Yeah.
I unfortunately have to leave.
Okay,
So,
I'll give my report. Don't feel like you have to stay. It'll be in the minutes. Are you ready for me?
Yes, ma'am. Keep
Okay.
going.
Okay. So the library will be closed Thursday and Friday next week for Thanksgiving. We are closed on Friday as well, so don't forget about that. We are closing early at 6 o'clock on November 27th, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Our teen advisory group had their first meeting, and now this Saturday they're having their second meeting, and they're building a small group of teen advisors to help determine the programming interests of the teens and to do volunteer work here at the library. The Festival of Lights Parade is coming up on December 7th, and we are participating in that.
Marching?
Yes, we are. We're going to have a great time. So watch for us. And then, even before then, Santa is
You just
coming.
never wave back at me when I wave at you.
10,000 people. I'm not sure where you are.
I'm the one standing there going, Jeannie, hey.
No.
You can't hear anything if you're in there.
We couldn't even hear our music last year. It was
Okay.
so loud. We just canned our routine.
I said, she's just stuck up. She doesn't speak to people.
I don't know where you were. I have no idea. So Santa Claus is coming to town. He's coming to the library Tuesday, December 3rd from 4 to 7. It is an open house. You're not required to be here at 4 o'clock. We want families to have a 3-hour window that they can come, see Santa. We don't charge for anything. It's a great time for families to dress up and take their holiday photo. We do this because I know there are a lot of families who can't afford to go get their picture taken at the mall.
Right.
And Santa's just super nice and
Good call.
perfect.
He always
Santa.
brings his wife.
Mrs. Claus comes. They leave Rudolph at the thermal airport and drive a rental car. That's what they say.
I love it.
It's adorable. So families are invited to come and bring their letters to Santa, and we'll do a little craft while they wait. And we've been doing this year after year. This year it's on a Tuesday. It's a little bit different. We usually do Wednesdays, but this year it's on a Tuesday. We are putting up our holiday tree on Monday, November 25th, because
What?
Santa Claus is coming the next week.
Oh, my gosh.
So we're looking for
Just do it
volunteers.
on Halloween.
Yeah, I would if I could. Volunteers, so you are invited to come and help us put up the tree at 8 a.m. on Monday morning, 8 to 10. Come on over and help us if you want. No requirement, but we're going to hang the garland from the banister or whatever it's called, the big ceiling, and put up all the stuff in the kids' room.
It's a legacy project. It's going to be gone by then.
Yes.
The Legacy Wall, it ends this Saturday.
And it comes down on Sunday.
And it comes down on Sunday. And so we're really grateful to the Friends for sponsoring a large chunk of the Legacy Wall budget and to help pay for busing for the kids. And we give them a library.
For the reception, the foundation paid for the reception.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the foundation paid for the reception.
They did, yeah.
Foundation and Friends pitched in together to do the reception.
Great.
But the
Very
Friends
nice turnout.
The Friends donated $15,000 to the Legacy Wall to help sponsor it and to bring it here, with the specific request that we do busing for kids to come over here and have tours. And then we implement our own library tour as part of the educational visit and tell them about the library. They can get library cards. And this is a great time. Yeah, so happy.
Yeah.
The day of the Festival of Lights Parade, December 7th, at Wellwood, we're having home movie day. So Julie, tell them real quickly about.
Yes, this is an international celebrated event that is now coming to Palm Springs. They're bringing experts over from Los Angeles. They're going to have different types of cameras and things where everyone can clean out their closets and find their old movies, bring them in. They will look at them. They will review them. They will do some minor repairs. They will tell you how to preserve them, and then they will screen, with your permission, screen a little segment of your home movie on whatever the different machine that works with it, and they'll tell you all about it. It's a fun open house type of event from 1 to 4. We're going to play Home Movie Day Bingo, where people will win prizes. Local merchants are contributing to that. So it's really going to be a fun event, and like I said, this is the inaugural year of it being in Palm Springs, so we're hoping that people will come out, and it'll be a fun afternoon.
The great idea of this, brilliant, is that it's from 1 to 4, and you just stick around, you get the parking space, and then you stick around downtown for the Festival of Lights Parade.
Exactly.
And so you've got something to do while you wait.
Yes, we're hoping to capitalize on all that foot traffic.
Passports are coming to town. We received our training, and we have 8 more agents who passed their tests. So now we are going to have 12 licensed agents. We're waiting for a few more supplies for us to make this go live. One of the things is their agent IDs. They have to turn in some pay. We just heard today that 8 more people passed their tests, and then we've got to do some hoop jumping, and then.
And these are all staff employees?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, and not everybody will be doing them actively. Like myself, I'm the site supervisor, so I need to know what's involved in case I have to intervene or help somebody. So I'm licensed, but I'm not going to be scheduled back there to do
If you're
passports.
doing passports, which I think is great,
Yeah, we're excited.
can you also do real IDs?
Let us do this first. I don't
Yeah,
know.
because that's going to be a problem for a lot of people.
Yeah, I don't know
Have
about
you gone to DMV to try to do that?
how to do it.
2 friends go and they came back frustrated.
Oh, yeah. 'cause
Well, the
I don't think you
option-
want to go through that training to do that. I think you should leave that to the DMV.
The alternative.
I got mine, it was really easy.
Here's your
It was like 10
alternative.
minutes, boom, done.
The
Yeah, but you
alternative.
were prepared.
I was.
Okay, the alternative is just get a passport and you don't need the
Right,
real
that's what I
ID.
do now.
Just get the passport, you won't need it. We're going to be offering photo service, and we're going to do online scheduling of the appointments, and it's going to be really terrific and lovely. So we're going to do a soft opening sometime in December, and then a full press launch in January.
You're going to do a press launch in January.
Yeah,
We're
we're
not
going
going to
to.
announce it until then.
We're going to get some passports under our belt in December and
Yeah, good.
do some practice, make sure we know what we're doing, and then
Iron out any kinks.
and yeah, make sure we've got all the supplies that we need and we know how to handle the postage and all of the different things, and then we'll let everybody know. I mean, we'll be, once we go live, it'll be on the State Department's website as far as finding a location. We'll be listed, so people will find us. They still call us today. We haven't been doing passports for 10 years, and they'll call and ask if we do passports. So
But now we can say yes.
we'll be able to say
Pretty
yes.
soon.
Yeah. So that's my report. I'm
Thank you.
happy to answer questions.
Any trustee comments or requests? Good meeting. So without anything else, the meeting will stand adjourned at 5:05.
Thank you.
And we'll see you guys next
December 19th
December
Here in this
19th.
room.
at the Library Learning Center, 3 o'clock.
Thank you.